To the point where they reach death, that is the only time they say to Allah, give me another chance. لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا. Hopefully, I will act righteously. Probably I'll act righteously, so that I act righteously. فِيمَا تَرَكْتُ. In everything I left behind. All the opportunities of good I abandoned, I will take advantage of now. فِيمَا تَرَكْتُ. In what I left behind. All the things that I could have done, I didn't do, I'll do this time. Kalla, Allah says, not at all. Kalla, no way. Innaha kalimatun huwa qailuha. This is just, he's just running his mouth. That's how I translate, innama kalimatun huwa qailuha. This is just a word that he's uttering, which means he's just running his mouth. He's just saying that he's going to be this way. Allah knows exactly how you're going to be. Allah already said if Allah took punishment away, what would have happened? They would have insisted upon their deviation. Now Allah says this guy comes before Allah on his deathbed and says, Ya Allah, I'll be different. They're not going to be different. You know, they make documentaries about drug addicts and, you know, people that fall into gangs and things like that, and they get caught, and then they go to juvenile court and they promise the judge they won't do it again, and guess what happens? They do it again, and they do it again, and they do it again. They're just stuck in that life of crime. And that's just the judge calling what it is, like, I know how this goes. Actually, interestingly. So this is just something he's saying. And right behind them is a huge barrier, barzakh. إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. And this is also the life of barzakh. The life of the grave. And barzakh literally means a barrier between two things. So there are two lives. There's the life of the afterlife, and there's the life of this life, and the life in between, the gap in between is barzakh. إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. And barzakh also means significant difference. It's a very big divide and a very big difference. So it's a very different life from this life, the life of barzakh. Until a day that they're going to be raised. We're almost done with the surah, might as well finish it now, inshaAllah ta'ala. فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ. Then when the trumpet is blown into, then there aren't going to be any relationships between them on that day. Nasaba, to elaborate, to describe that you have a relationship with somebody. You know, you're talking to somebody and say, oh, you know that one? Yeah, that's my uncle. I know him, he's my uncle. He's my cousin. My sister does that all the time. Insab is to draw closeness and relationship. Judgment Day comes around, and the same people that used to be a gang together, the mala together, the chieftains together, the elite together, they used to go to all the parties together. Those people, there's no relationship. فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ. There are no relationships between them on that day. وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. And nor are they even asking about one another. Hey, I don't see him. You know, they go to a party and they're like, hey, Mike's not here today. Where's Sam? Where'd he go? Nobody's asking for nobody. They're not asking about, they don't miss anybody at the party. Compare this to what we're going to learn about Jannah. In Jannah, you end up at a party too. And when you end up at that party, you're like, hey, my friend's missing. Where'd he go? And then you find out he's in hellfire. But at least you asked about him. When this trumpet is blown, these guys, they won't even ask about anybody else. وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ فَمَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Then those whose scales have been made heavy, those are the ones that are the ultimately successful. Where was ultimate success mentioned? Beginning of the surah, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Surahs tend to end where they begin. They tend to tie lessons together. وَمَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. And as for those whose scales have been lightened, who didn't have enough deeds, who had worthless deeds, فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ. I should say something else too here. The scales being heavy and the scales being light is different from saying the scales were made heavy and the scales were made light. If you say they were made light, an external force lightened them, or an external force made them heavy. But Allah says ثَقُلَتْ, not أُثْقِلَتْ. ثَقُلَتْ, which means they were in and of themselves heavy. These people, their deeds are worthy, in and of themselves they're valuable. And خَفَّت means Allah didn't somehow, make a command and their deeds are worthless. Their deeds were worthless originally. To begin with, they were worthless. That's why they were light on their own merits. فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ. Then those are the ones that have truly bankrupted themselves, خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ, put themselves in loss. فِي جَهَنَّمَ خَالِدُونَ. In Jahannam they are going to remain permanently. Jahannam being the torture chamber. Speaking of the torture chamber now, تَلْفَحُ وُجُوهَهُمْ. Their faces are going to get blistered, and their skin's going to get all like twisted and discolored because of the fire. تَلْفَحُ وُجُوهَهُمُ النَّارِ وَهُمْ فِيهَا كَالِحُونَ. And because of the pain, they're going to have an ugly face. Kalih is an ugly face, that the face someone makes when they're going through torture. And kalih also means of the lips not to touch one another. Like a guy's looking like, and they're making that, I can't even make the face. But they're being tortured, their lips can't even touch, out of the crying and the screaming, the anguish they're constantly doing. And kalihun, now and again, permanently in that.